Republicans are playing political theater with the Epstein files, but their big problem is they don't know their lines. Donald Trump makes up so many lies. He changes his story, tries to change the narrative every single day that Republicans cannot fall in line and deliver the narrative that Donald Trump wants. And that was abundantly clear with the shocking admission that Mike Johnson let slip as he was caught on camera saying something that has blown up this entire Epstein scandal, an admission about where Donald Trump is in these files. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we can get into that clip of Mike Johnson, we have to start with a different Republican congressman in Thomas Massie, who had to say this about the pressure campaign that the White House is pushing right now.
Updates on the discharge petition. Do you think you'll get the number of signatures you need?
I think we'll eventually get there. What people are waking up and discovering right now is the folks who stayed up all night to go through the 34,000 individual pages have found that they're so redacted as to be useless, and that many of them were already available.
Do you think this oversight tactic is releasing these documents? I mean, how do you actually read it? Clearly they're pushing for more transparency, but it seems like it's not enough for you.
Well, I appreciate the effort that they've undertaken, but the scope of their investigation is to investigate the investigators. Like, they don't ever intend to have any criminal referrals. There may be some notations from the Oversight Committee when this is done that, oh, this FBI person didn't check this box, or this person acted unethically, or this person got too light of a sentence. But they're not going in and trying to identify who these perpetrators were of these heinous sexual abuse crimes.
I wanted to ask which Republicans you think will end up signing onto your discharge petition.
Well, I made the mistake of getting 12 co-sponsors, and so the White House knew who to target, so I'm not going to name anybody who's thinking about joining.
But you're confident you'll get the signatures?
I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's a strong effort from the White House. They're literally calling it a hostile act to sign this discharge petition now, and I don't know if that's precedented in this country to have a president call legislators to say that they're engaged in a hostile act.
So it's very important to note what Thomas Massie said there about the documents released by the Oversight Committee. This was repetition and repetition and repetition with the same old stuff that we've already seen released. What Pam Bondi and Donald Trump and Kash Patel want us to see of the Epstein files. Everything redacted, no Republicans hurt. We saw that video captured of a top DOJ official saying all the Republicans would have their names redacted. That is the type of information that we're getting right now. And why that's so important is because Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna and all the Democrats in the House want the rest of the Epstein files released. Now, if Donald Trump is saying that he already gave you all the Epstein files, why would he have a problem with them being released again by Congress? But that obviously leads us to believe what we know is the truth is that there is more information out there. The type of information being told by these victims so bravely sharing their stories is what Ro Khanna said right here. That is the reason why Mike Johnson's shock admission is just completely blowing up Trump's narrative.
The survivors actually, if you listen, as I know you did, but if others listen to their statements, they were basically pleading with Donald Trump. They were not saying, they were not attacking him. They were not criticizing him. So one person said, I'm a Republican. They said, Mr. President, previous presidents haven't released this. Will you please just find some humanity and release these? We're asking you as the president of the nation to do right. And for him to not even listen to them, for him to just say it's a hoax, it's a hoax, it's a hoax. I mean, it was so disrespectful that Thomas Massie called him out on it. So disrespectful that Marjorie Taylor Greene said to the president he should at least meet these survivors, because to call it a hoax is to dehumanize.
This isn't even a political issue anymore. These victims want transparency. They want justice. They want these files to be public. Yet Donald Trump continues to say this is a hoax. All of it. Everything related to Epstein is a hoax. But that's tough to do when he was a real guy who committed real crimes, who was prosecuted and found guilty of those crimes, but someone in your cabinet helped him cover up those crimes, multiple members of your administration, in fact. Yet Donald Trump says it's all fake, and he knows nothing of it, and he's never going to speak to the victims. Well, that runs really counter to what Mike Johnson just admitted in an effort to cover for Trump.
He's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down. The president knows and has great sympathy for the women who have suffered these unspeakable harms. It's detestable to him. He and I have spoken about this as recently as 24 hours ago.
So if Donald Trump was an FBI informant sharing information that he knew about Jeffrey Epstein, then that confirms, one, that this can't be a hoax, Donald, because you took it seriously enough to report it to the FBI, which again is not what happened. This runs completely counter to the actual truth of why the Epstein-Trump friendship ended. But also, that is an admission that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. What we've seen released, what we know is in these files, what the FBI data has compiled, all of these documents, is information about Epstein. Those who have reported his abuse, his alleged abuse in some instances, and stories about Jeffrey Epstein. We've heard from victims saying that they went to the FBI countless times to talk about Trump. Now, we know Pam Bondi has said that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. Privately, of course, they won't admit that publicly. But clearly, the angle that Mike Johnson is trying to take, what's so important here, is that he's trying to say Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files, but it's because he's such a great guy. No one's going to buy that. No one believes that. And he's kind of throwing Trump under the bus with that admission, even though he's trying to say, well, Donald is only in there because he was doing a righteous thing and he was reporting Epstein and he was going to the feds. It just doesn't work, especially when Donald Trump continues to say this.
All run by Democrats, or for the most part run by Democrats. So what they're trying to do with the Epstein hoax is get people to talk about that instead of speaking about the tremendous success like ending 7 wars. I ended 7 wars. Nobody's going to talk about because they're going to talk about the Epstein whatever. I understand.
So how can it be at the same time as Donald Trump is calling the Epstein files a hoax, he refuses to speak to the victims? He doesn't want Republicans speaking to the victims. He wants them to fall in line and not release any more information. It's also that he was an FBI informant. And if Donald Trump was such a great guy, if Donald Trump was helping to bust Jeffrey Epstein, why wouldn't they want that shared? It doesn't make any sense. If he is in the files because he was an FBI informant, and sharing that information would cast Donald Trump in a positive light, why are they unwilling to release these files? Because Donald Trump is not cast in a positive light in these files, but Mike Johnson has all but affirmed and confirmed and admitted that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files. But again, what they want you to believe, the narrative Mike Johnson is trying to spin up right now, is that if you see Trump's name, it's because he was an FBI informant. Something we have never heard before. This is just completely out of nowhere. But that is the lie that they want you to believe. We are certainly not going to. That is batshit crazy. That is this is out of left field, and it doesn't make any sense at all. All we know is that Donald Trump doesn't want these files going public, but we're going to keep calling him out, and so is Jasmine Crockett right here.
And years of abuse that did not have to take place. And so the reality is this. Some think that this is all over, and some think that nothing else is going on. But if there was ever a RICO case, it would have been the Epstein case. So how we went from something that should have been RICO because of how sophisticated of a system this was, and this wasn't just one little sick old man that was doing stuff, but there were so many layers, whether we're talking about the banks that were involved, whether we're talking about those that worked for him, that helped him, whether we're talking about the monster known as Maxwell, and that's exactly how y'all need to refer to her. She is a monster. She is not a victim. So let me tell you, I want some action items to come out of this, because for once we somewhat look like we're bipartisan in the Oversight Committee. Number one, we need answers. We need answers on why it is that Maxwell was transferred from her current station or her former station in Florida down to Texas. We need to have an understanding, because everything that I heard today leads me to know that for sure she was all up and in and through this entire process. Not to mention that she was indicted by a jury of her peers, and then she was tried and convicted and given 20 years. So why is it that we had somebody, again, it almost seems like we are doomed to repeat our failures? Because why is it we have high-level people that seemingly are running cover for a criminal? And that is what she is. She is a monster and she is a criminal. So number one, we need answers on what happened with that transfer, why it took place. And honestly, we all need to stand together and say that Maxwell needs to go back to where the monsters go, which is to a higher level of security. We also need to understand that Debbie Wasserman Schultz has legislation that she has been trying to push forward. And so in a bipartisan way, we all need to get behind Debbie, because we found and what we learned is that there were loopholes as it relates to the Crime Victims Act. And so we've got to make sure that no other victims suffer in the way that they did when you have somebody like Alex Acosta that decides that he wants to play games and dismiss a case and never inform the victims of what's going on as is required by law. So we are going to have to fix those loopholes to make sure that that doesn't happen, because it took them 10 years of fighting this, and ultimately by the time they got to the end of it, well, it also was Jeffrey Epstein's end, and so there was not a resolution for that. And the final thing that I think that we need to do is, obviously, we need to continue to push forward and make sure that we get all the files, because we know that we have not received them all. Because I am standing in front of the press, I'm also going to make a plea. One of the things that I realized was that there's a lot of stuff that the DOJ may have, but honestly, if you don't have a thorough investigation, and I can't say if we had a thorough investigation or not, we have no idea. But the reality is that when you have investigators that go out and they collect information. I am not necessarily convinced that they even have gone out and done their due diligence to fully investigate this case in the first place. So if there's anyone in the public that believes that you have information that would be valuable, you've never been able to get through to federal agencies, or no one would listen to you when you try to go forward and bring information forward, I am asking that you trust oversight DIMS and you bring that information to us. Or if you know where some information is contained, let us know so that we can then send subpoenas out that way. We want to do right not only by those that have already suffered under Epstein, but we want to prevent other trafficking rings that we know are out there. We want to make sure that we are doing right for future generations.
This is absolute insanity that this administration thinks that they can coerce Republican votes, as I guess they have all the time, but on this issue specifically, and that they think that they can define this narrative. They can't. We are going to keep putting the pressure on, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.